Right, I'm now going to show you some very famous trees that I've had in my collection and may have sold on from time to time. Now this one is an extremely famous and rare piece. This forest group was made by the late John Naka. John Naka, as you know, is one of the greatest living bonsai artists, American, Japanese, and he came to the UK twice during his lifetime. The first time he came was in 1976, and then the second time was in 1978, I think it was. And at that time I was deeply involved with the British Bonsai Association. I was not the chairman, but I was certainly very active in the committee, and I and some other people helped to organize a convention where we hosted John Naka, and this was a group that he made when he went to Scotland. I think it was Glasgow, and he did the demonstration there. And these are made from the humble Bloor's juniper. It's still in its original pot, I think, but I sold it to a customer about maybe 10 years ago. But it's a bit neglected, but I'll bring it back to its full glory once again. So this is just to show you what this tree looked like. Now, if I open this book, I featured it in my book, Bonsai Masterclass. This book, as I have told you, was written in 1987, and many of the photographs were taken in 1984 or thereabouts. Now, if we home in onto this book, I will show you on page 24 of the book. This is a picture of our nursery back in 1986 when I came here. And if you home in on this picture, you can see the picture of that forest group standing on our benches on display at Heron's Bonsai Nursery. So this is what it looked like in 1986. I'll show you another picture of that famous group. And this is a close-up of that tree. Again, this picture was taken 1986, page 109. And this, in fact, is the very same pot. As you can see, the very same pot. But you can see how the tree has grown. The trees then were not very mature because it had just been made about 8 years previously. And the crown is not so full. But I will restore it, as I said. But I think I'm going to put it in a larger pot because this pot is stressing the tree too much. So you will see it restored over the next couple of days when I work on the tree. Meanwhile, let me show you another very famous tree. Now, this pine, I've worked on it for quite a while, and it's gone through a succession of different pots. This is the latest pot that I've put in only a few days ago, and I'm going to rewire it to show you what it looks like. In case you're wondering why this tree is famous, and it's one of the trees that I think I will not sell in a hurry. This tree is in fact the very same tree that you see here. This is the cover tree for Bonsai Masterclass. This picture was taken in 1984, and as you know, the book was published in 87, and I wrote the book in 86, and the tree on the cover was like this. What is now the back is now in the cover. This was the front. They use the back as the front. So this is the tree. And you must be wondering what happened to this cascading branch. Well, as you know, most cascade trees are very weak on the cascading branch because all the vigor goes to the top. So the cascading branch here has died over a period of time, and I ginned it. So that's what's happened to that. Now you must be wondering why this picture was chosen for the cover of Bonsai Masterclass. Anyone who has written a book for publishers will know that you have very little control over the picture and the cover of the books. The publishers will use pictures which they think will sell to the public, not what you think is the best. So this, at the time, was one of my rubbish trees. It was in the backyard. And the publisher, he saw this blue pot and he said, "What a lovely pot." So he decided to use this picture because the pot was nice. I would have never used a blue pot for this tree. It would have been put in a brown unglazed pot. But this was only a training pot that I had at the time. But he liked the look of the pot and he liked the look of the tree. And that is why this picture has stuck on the cover of Bonsai Masterclass forever. But I'm really ashamed of this picture because it's not a good representation of what I actually have in my collection. So there you go. But I will work a little bit on this because I can improve it a bit. As you can see, just lifting the branches like that will improve it. So I'm going to do a little bit of work on this. So this is that very famous tree. So there you go. From the same book, you've seen two very famous trees. So I'm self-videoing again. I'm just showing you what I'm going to do to this pine. This pine is a bit congested. So I'm going to lift some of these branches so that there's more space between the different layers. So this is what I'm going to do. I've already put a couple of wires. It's very hard to self-video doing this, but I'll do some and then show it to you again. So I'm continuing to wire this pine. This is the pine from the cover of Bonsai Masterclass. It's seen many changes, but I'm going to now change it to some other image. Looking at this tree, the left-hand side is very strong. As I said to you, the original cascade part was here, which has died because most of the downward pointing branches are never strong. All the vigor seems to go up. But this side is very strong, so there is a bit of an unbalance here because this side is stronger than that side. So I'm going to do something to try and correct it or reduce this to make it more even looking. So I'll continue to do wiring. I always feel that whenever you're faced with problems with wiring, the best thing to do is simply wire everything in sight, and once everything is wired, you can then arrange the branches how you like. This particular tree has been wired so many times that there are lots of wire marks on it. I'm trying to avoid wiring over the same grooves all the time so that it doesn't mark it further. But with pines it's not so important because the flaky bark that develops on pines as they get older tends to blend with the wire marks. So wire marks are never an issue. Wire marks are more of an issue with trees like maples. And of course, I don't often wire my maples. Very rarely do I wire my maples. In recent years, I've found that the more you tip prune the pines, any pine, the bushier it gets. So this pine has become quite bushy. I don't want to spend hours and hours showing you what I do to this because this pine certainly has got many hours of work in it. So it will take a long time to wire everything. Again, judging the gauge of wire. I always tell people that the most popular gauges of wire for most bonsai are 1.5, 2 mil, 2.5, 3, and possibly 3.5. So if you're just starting off in bonsai and you want to keep a stock of wire, those are the gauges you should keep. So remember, it's maybe even 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5. Thicker than that, you will rarely use, unless of course you're trying to wire some very, very thick branches. And that's the aluminium wire. I'm not talking of copper wire. Copper wire is quite difficult to use, and if you're not experienced with wiring, then I would say copper is not really something that beginners should try and attempt to use. All these little pieces should be wired flat. So I'm now going to use 2.5. Now, because some of these branches have been wired before, there are some very intricate bends on the trunks already, so I'm having to negotiate very carefully around these already bent branches. I don't want to turn my back to the camera. I don't know whether you find this tedious or not, because I always feel that if there's no drama, it could be a bit boring for you. think I will have to show you just bits of it, because this is going to be very, very boring for you. Suffice to say that I'll be wiring every single branch. I'll just take the camera and show you how intricate it is. So you can see some of the very floppy branches. There's so many floppy branches, and all the tips are at the ends. So we've got to place the branches so that they are in flat tiers. So each of these pads will be flat. It's very hard to look at the detail, but when the tree is completed, you will begin to see it. So as I say, it can be a very boring exercise showing you every little bit of wiring that I'm doing, but I'm going to wire it and then show you the end result. See, it's really like an octopus. Look at the tentacles of the branches. So complicated. And long. So you can see the grooves of the previous wires that we took off, but we've put the wire in different places so they don't mark it further. So this is the John Narker group, which has belonged to a customer of mine for quite a few years and sadly neglected, and I think they put it against other bushes and hedges, and so you get a lot of dieback, but I think it needs very radical repotting, and probably in a bigger pot because the tree has grown so large. So let's take it out of the pot. It's not an incurved pot, but I think it's still difficult. So if we look at the underside, the roots are strong, but I will tease it gently, and I'm going to put it in a deeper pot for at least a year to revive the tree. I'll make it bright green and strong, and it's only when it is strong that I will start to work on it. I'm not going to cut some of these branches off. There's always a temptation. If you come close, you will see that there's some branches which have died, but the ends of these are green, so it can bud back there. So I don't want to dispose of these branches. It's all very well to get rid of it. That's the easy way out, but I think a more difficult option would be to get it to bud back. So putting it in a larger pot, even if it's a temporary pot, will do the trick. So we'll decide what to do, either a basket or a big pot. Today is the 1st of August, and yesterday, the 31st of July, we had temperatures of 38 centigrade, which is the hottest ever temperature recorded in the south of England. Heathrow was the same temperature, and we had the same temperature. And you must be wondering, what am I doing with this tree? Am I going to repot it? Both yes and no. So, as I said, this tree has been neglected a bit. So what's going to happen is that I have to grow it on to get it back to its full strength before I do anything. Sadly, one or two of the small trees have died, like this one has died. So I think they were probably strangled by the bigger ones, but no matter, we'll probably get rid of them. But the main thing is to decide what to do now to bring it back to full life. Now let's have a look at the underneath to see the roots. If we look at it, the roots are quite good, but see that new growth tips there. But I'm not going to tease any of the roots or cut any root. I'm just going to put it in sphagnum moss. Today, as I said, was the 1st of August, so I'll keep it in the pot for the whole of August, September, October, November, December, January, February. For the next 7 months, it's going to grow in a tray of moss, and then in mid-February or early March, I'm going to pot it properly by teasing the roots, and then the tree will recover even more. So when you get a situation like this, don't try and work on it, whatever you do. The main object is really to revive it. It's not dead, it's just that all the growth has gone to the top, very little has gone to the bottom, but we can still make something out of it. After all, this is a John Naka composition, so it's very, very famous. I did think of using a big pot, and I'll show you the big Naka pot. But there's no point putting it in a pot, it serves no purpose. I think this pot is far too large. But what I will do instead is I'm going to put it in a, what we call a bread basket, and line it with moss, and then that will be the best solution for this tree. So this basket is quite generous in size. It should just fit. And I've got some moss around, I'll just bring it. So I'm just going to line this basket with moss. This is moss which has been used before, but no matter. It can be used over and over again. Look at that beautiful moss. Almost anything would grow in it. So that's what I do. Straighten this. I may have to just tease a bit of the root. Not a bad judgment. I knew it would fit in here. Doing a bit like this doesn't really hurt the tree. Still can't get it in. Let me see if I can take a little bit off from the back. Still won't fit. I don't want to put it in too big a basket because then the soil might get sour. Now let's see if it fits. There you go. Now sitting in the basket, and I put it on the gravel. So we'll just switch the camera off and we'll show you where we're going to put it.